All right, welcome to this episode of North State Rocks podcast. Today's episode features Jessica Vigil, a North State native, grew up on the Dixie Valley Ranch, tied to the ranching community at her roots, at her DNA. Just an incredible human. We put her on the spot and really asked her about the impact that wolves are having on North State ranchers. And I think if anybody has paid attention to this at all, it's a hot topic. It's devastating to ranchers what's happening. The policies around what they cannot do as a rancher to protect themselves is pretty incredible to hear directly from Jess and what they're dealing with. And I'm just really excited for this episode to get out and really appreciate Jess's time.
Welcome to the North State Rocks podcast. Discover the hidden gems and extraordinary people of California's North State region. Join Perry Thompson, CEO of Hat Creek Construction and Materials, as he explores the vibrant communities and interesting neighbors that make our region a great place to live, work, and play. Tune in, be inspired, and rediscover the North State. This is your community. This is your story.
Okay. Hi, Jess. Nice to
Perry.
see you.
It's good to see you.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. So we have Jess Vigil. So give us your title and who you're working for now, Jess.
So I work for Elwood Ranch. They kind of have all kind of businesses right now, but they're getting into the restaurant business. They have a beef direct-to-consumer business, and then registered Angus seed stock business. So they sell bulls to commercial buyers, and they have their hands in everything.
Yeah. Amazing. That's awesome. Okay. So what I'm excited to talk to you about today is I've talked to you about this topic, about wolves in general and kind of northeastern California. That's, it's called North State Rocks podcast. So we're trying to focus on North State issues and, achievements and challenges and opportunities and all of those things. Right. So, my family comes from a ranching background, still run cattle. My aunt and uncle still run cattle. Uncle now still runs cattle. So you have kind of been in the forefront of the wolf world. In fact, it's funny. I was talking to a ranching family that recently has had some devastating losses. And I invited them on the podcast or asked them who would be the best person. And they unanimously, a couple of different ranchers said, Jess Vigil is the one. She's the best to talk about this. So whether you agree or disagree, you have been voted as at least our initial spokesperson for this topic. So Jess, can you just start with your background and kind of where you grew up and just kind of let people understand that you've been kind of grounded in the ranching world since birth and just catch us up a little bit on that, please?
Yeah. So I grew up on Dixie Valley Ranch throughout, 18 years, lived there, worked probably harder than a kid should have, but it built character. I came back, I went to school in Oklahoma and then came back and went to work again for Dixie Valley and kind of saw the wolf issue explode. Um, and it's such a new thing, new challenge for ranchers that, it's hard to navigate for anyone. And so I remember the first kill that I saw, it was, the heifer actually wasn't dead. Like she was, they had paralyzed her, and it was really hard to see. And it hits you on an emotional level because it's just like you're trying to keep these cattle alive. You do everything to take care of them from birth. And this thing that's beyond our control is now threatening, our herd. And we can't do anything to stop it.
So elaborate on we can't do anything to stop it. So just take our listeners through Contrast maybe California versus, other states on what can and can't be done if you're a rancher watching your heifer getting slaughtered. What are their options
So,
as a
so phase one, we have moved to phase two of the wolf management plan. So there are certain measures you can do, but any direct harassment of the wolf is not allowed. And I think it creates more of a problem because in phase one, which we were in for, I mean, basically from 2020 until 2025, there was no, you could not do anything to haze them. And so the wolves never got a negative connotation of humans. And so now we have conditioned them to not have a negative interaction with humans. They see us, they don't fear us, and so it's not necessarily a normal wild interaction with wolves. They're not scared of us. They're coming by houses. I know the kill that happened in Hat Creek, um, not even a month ago, it happened 200 yards from their house. And so that's scary. It's a whole nother level of a threat. A common misconception is this only happens on public land, Forest Service allotments, BLM allotments. And I just went through the wolf report that they come out with quarterly, and I did not see any on public land. They were all on private ranchers' land.
yeah. Yeah, so and let's just talk about what qualifies as a, making the report. I've been doing a little research on this, and I guess probably the part I was most shocked about was, statistically, and this is from, this is like using AI and just kind of what I would call non-biased, or if it's biased, it's probably biased against ranchers. Uh, that data is saying 1 out of 7 kills is actually recorded as a kill because there can't be any scavenger. If there's been any scavenger activity on it, doesn't count, which doesn't take long. If, as we all know, the wolves kill, they eat what they it's almost like a I don't want to get off topic there because that's a whole nother conversation. But basically, can you elaborate on what qualifies as a kill and not as a kill? Because I was shocked at how many hoops are set up in front of the ranchers for this.
Yeah, I'll go through the process. So the first thing you do if you see, bones, anything that you think might be a wolf kill, is you call the federal trapper in the area or California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and they come out and basically do a full-blown investigation into that death. And so they will skin the animal. They will look for hemorrhaging. Um, a lot of times you don't really see anything outside of the skin, and then they get to skin the cow, and the shoulders are just ripped to shreds. It's just there's so they go through, they take DNA samples, and send they make that determination, and they send that off to California Department of Fish and Wildlife, whether it's a probable, confirmed, or it is not. And there are a lot of deaths. There was one in particular of a heifer, and I went and checked the pasture and come back, and she's just kind of humped over on a rock. Like, she obviously dead, but like her front legs are behind her, and there were some signs that she had been chased, but not a lot. And so I thought for sure they would not confirm this kill, but they came out and skinned her, and she had hemorrhaging all over. And so it was like a slow kill, and a lot of times what gets them is exertional myopathy. So it's um, basically their heart just explodes from the pursuit. And so if
So base,
talking to ranchers, if you have a kill that does not look right, like in my mind, that heifer, I thought maybe she had something had happened, like health wise. Um, but like if you have anything that's just kind of odd, call the trapper and have him come investigate it.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's actually a positive example of actually something that could have been argued that it
The
wasn't
other
a
way.
wolf kill, but they actually went the extra distance and kind of confirmed. So what you're saying is basically that that heifer was basically ran to death. Just they
Yeah.
ran it until it died. But that why? So can you explain why the wolves would run a heifer to death and then not to even take a
So
bite out of it?
it's basically training their young how to kill. So I don't a lot of people say it's thrill killing, and I don't, you can't, it's not like you can speak to the wolf and ask him, are you having fun? But really
Yeah,
they are just training. So like the yearling pups that they have, they're just training them how to kill. What is the most effective way to kill? How to basically paralyze an animal and then go after it. But there's a lot of, not even the confirmed losses, but there are so many indirect losses that ranchers are facing. Like conception rates go down, they can go down as far as like 20 to 30% when these cows are under this constant stress. So then next year's calf crop is smaller. There is weight loss from 3 to 5%. So their calves that they're weaning and sending to market are weighing 3 to 5% less. And there's so many just immeasurable things that go on with the herd, not even the direct losses, which the direct losses are being reimbursed. Sometimes you have to wait a long time to get that money, but there are funds in there right now.
yeah. So let's elaborate on that just a little bit. So when I was looking at, so you did a good job of kind of touching on that. I'd like to dive a little deeper. Again, just trying to prepare for this podcast. It was quoting 15 to 20% actual realization of loss is about 15 to 20% when you factor in some of the things you're talking about. So when our herd is under stress, right? They have higher um, uh, miscarriage rates. They have lower weight gain. They're especially on kind of, a lot of people take the genetics are super important. And it was talking about how, and again, I'm asking, I'm not saying, but the misconception I think for a lot of people is they just kind of go get the weak, they get the
Yeah.
calves or they get the old cow. And some of what I was reading about is that their pattern seems to be more about, calves obviously, but also nursing um, mom cows, and then heifers, which are there's a real high value. They're right in line for the bloodline you're trying to build,
Hmm.
right? And they're kind of attacking the actual bloodline at the worst point. So can you just is that accurate, or is that what am I reading kind of not accurate?
No, definitely. I mean, I've seen it time and time again. The wolves will go after what they want to eat. That it's not, it is such a misconception that they kill the sick and the weak. Um, that one heifer I talked about that had the exertional myopathy, she was the biggest and strongest one in the herd. They will go after what they want. If they're going to go through the motions of doing it, they're smart enough to know, like, hey, that one looks good. Um, the unrealized losses, again, are those, so like if they kill a cow in the prime of her production, 3 to, you know, 5 years old, you're losing the calves that she was going to have on your ranch in the future also. And that's something that's not reimbursed. You lose a replacement heifer and she could have had 10 calves for you.
Right.
That adds up quickly, and the replacements right now to buy to buy one like that. I mean, I saw the other day there were some that sold for $5,200, and so
Wow.
it's a lot of
Yeah.
money, and
Yeah.
you're getting, say you get 3,500 for her, that's a lot of lost revenue that you have in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, you said you kind of went through phase one, and phase one kind of taught them not to be afraid of humans. And then phase two, kind of elaborate on what can be done for phase two now, if you're a rancher.
So they actually, some movement with California Department of Fish and Wildlife. In Sierra Valley, there were chronic depredations. So that wolf pack, they killed and killed and killed almost daily. And so they had a strike team there that would haze them off. Well, it would just haze them to the next ranch over. And so they would just kill that rancher's cattle. And it got to a point where finally they did take out, four. They took out three of the adult, wolves and then one yearling. And so I think that gave some ranchers some optimism that in the future, if there is a problem pack, maybe something will happen. But, um, on the other side of that, I think with the amount of backlash that California Department of Fish and Wildlife has received from doing that, I think they will be more cautious in the future and more hesitant to take management into their own hands. And, if there is a problem wolf, do something about it because, and there's also no clear guidelines. What defines a problem wolf? You know, 3 weeks ago, one ranch had 6 calves killed. And when I say calves, I mean 600-pound, weaned calves. And that's in
Wow.
a 3-day period. And it's like, how how do we define, that seems like a problem to me that revenue was lost. They were about to be shipped and sold. And so there's just a lot of unclear guidelines by California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And there's also a lot of secrecy within the organization. And I understand they want to keep their wolves safe, but I think they need to see from our perspective, we're not in the business of killing things just to kill them. Our whole business is set upon keeping something alive. And we understand there are predators all over. We deal with mountain lions, bears. The predator population is huge right now. And we don't just, we don't want to kill things. We are conservationists. And so it's hard to not have the trust of them. They kind of look at us with suspicion always. But ranchers have the most to lose when it comes to this situation. And
Yeah, and that would
right
be
now, they're protected at the state and federal level. And there have been, some comments that at the federal level, some protections might come off of them. But here in California, we are still facing their protections. So even if the federal stuff comes off, they're still
yeah,
protected, which is, I think people don't understand. They reproduce. They'll have 7 to 10 pups a year, And so the
Yep.
population right now, there's 11 confirmed packs, but there are a lot that they don't know that aren't collared. And so I think the population expands quickly, and management practices have to expand quickly. And that's something that our state has not done so far.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what I was reading, that, 7 to 10 pups, is that per year, Jess? Is that
Yeah,
the time
yep,
frame?
yearly.
So they're yearly. So once a year. And then there also another stat was a 30 to 35% population increase each year. And of course, that's not a linear curve, that's an
Mhm.
exponential curve, because as it's 35% more, it's 35% more of, each group is 35% 5 years from now, is way more than 35% today, if that makes sense. It's an
Yeah.
exponential curve instead of a linear curve. So, yeah, that was. I agree with what you're talking about. And then also, one of the things I was just trying to be prepared for this is that the the original California wolf. These are not original California wolves that they're reintroducing. I read that Canadian, and also maybe some from Idaho, but overall they're, and again, you're fact checking me on this, but what I read was that they're roughly 60 pounds heavier than the original California wolf, and also that the original California wolf was more of a solitary creature and not a very cunning pack killing machine. So these are very different wolves than were here however long ago. Is that accurate in what you know, or is that?
That is what I've researched as well. So I think they are bigger. So, the ones that our ancestors dealt with here, they were 40 to 50 pounds, and these ones are 100. And I don't have the scientific facts on this because so I try to read all the pro wolf stuff just to understand. And a
Mhm.
lot of those people say they are the normal species. But as far as, what the other side says, they say they aren't. I
Yeah,
just know they are very smart, and when there's a pack of seven chasing cows, they're going to get them.
yeah,
They're very
yeah.
smart hunters. It's amazing, quite honestly.
So, in your experience, and what you've learned so far, are they just killing cattle once in a while, and then 90% of the time they're killing deer and other things, or is if they have their choice, they're going to go to cattle each time, or is it just I happen to be passing through, and here's some cattle, so we're going to kill some cattle as we're passing through the territory? Kind of what is your experience with that?
I think they started killing deer and elk, and they still do. But our ungulate population is very, it's declined, a lot. And so they are going to get the easiest meal that's the tastiest. And I think they've just learned that beef is an easy target and it's a big meal. And they've just been conditioned to kill cattle at this point.
I see. Okay, so some of the other ranchers I've been talking to, I'm going to say you're doing a great job being not emotional about this and kind of playing both sides, which I appreciate. But some of the more understandably emotional ranchers that I've talked to, and again, I want some kind of using you as a fact checker, and because you've been on the front lines of this as well. Obviously, there's the examples that, hey, they kill the calf and they completely eat it, and it's like a true meal, and the whole herd eats it. But what I'm being described what most people are describing to me is that it is more of that which you kind of disagreed with about it kind of being a sport, but that it was more of they're, as a rancher, is really difficult to watch because they don't go attack the neck and kill it and put it down and then eat. They tear at the soft flesh, and again, training their younger ones to how to, it's alive and it's still, and it's more of a soft flesh thing. They might eat, 1/20th of the animal, if that, and then leave it. And it's just, so how much of that kind of what I would say is, obviously a highly emotional example versus, hey, they needed a meal and they killed a calf, kind of ate it complete and moved on. Which story are you seeing more of in the real world?
I think it's more of they kill a couple one night. So they'll kill two in one evening, and they might eat a part of one, and then that's about it. So the six that I was talking about that happened, I think they ate one of those, and the rest were just killed.
Wow.
And I think that and I don't know, I've heard the term surplus killing. I don't know. I just know that it's devastating for ranchers. It would be one thing if, with mountain lion kills, they'll kill something and they'll go take it up a tree or bury it and go back to it. At least the animal is being used, but these
Yeah.
animals that are being tortured, it's so hard to see. And then it's also, if it's a calf that's on a cow, seeing the cow just wrecked because she's protected her calf all night. And then, the wolves finally got it and she's exhausted and just, it's really hard to watch.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a heavy topic. So I want to kind of move to, what the ranchers are basically handcuffed in this state in particular. Now, I want to ask, I was reading that currently California is the only state. So Oregon and Washington has wolf issues as well. Okay. And again, I need you to be the fact checker, but they at least can use non-lethal rubber bullets. They can use, warning shots, like shooting over the animals, just the loud gun nature to kind of scare as part of the hazing. That is what I learned was literally legal right above us in Oregon and Washington. But in this state, for some reason, they can't even use that non-lethal. The only people that can haze is Fish and Wildlife with their drones and that kind of stuff. Is that accurate? Like the ranchers literally can't do a single thing. Is that right or is that wrong, Jess?
I'm going to fact check that right quick, Perry. Let me pause.
Okay. Okay. All right. You fact check that. Yeah. And it's okay. If you don't know, it's okay to say you don't know. Just trying to see where I saw it. Yeah. And while you're fact checking that, I remember talking years ago about OR7.
Mm-hmm.
And again, while we're fact checking, it says the OR7 bloodline spreads faster than any other wolf in the West.
That's crazy.
Disperses farther than typical packs, produces larger pack sizes, has high survival rates, and expands into ranch lands instead of the wilderness. Biologists quietly acknowledge that this is not normal wolf behavior. And again, this is from ChatGPT, okay? I'm not going to say I'm some smart guy here, but I know that ChatGPT can't always take it to the bank. That's why I'm kind of just talking to you about this stuff as well, right?
Okay, so the hazing, basically you can use a drone, spotlights, loud noises.
The rancher can?
The rancher can. A
Okay.
drone, spotlights, loud noises, um, no shots or anything. Nothing
Yeah.
to hurt the
Yeah.
animal.
Yeah.
But the other thing is the wolves are so smart, like um, they get used to it very quickly and they
Yeah.
learn to do it, in the middle of the night, which is, there are ranchers that are staying up all night, taking shifts to protect their animals, and still coming up, in the morning when it's light and having kills. Like it's just um, kind of a lose-lose situation.
Yeah. Demoralizing is how I would put
Yeah,
that. I mean, you're
yeah.
doing every effort that you can to protect your investment. And yeah, it's just very difficult. So, yeah. So let's just try and acknowledge the other side here. Obviously, we've been talking about ranchers and how bad it is for them. So obviously, I'm pro rancher. I'm pro North State. I'm highly biased, so I'm going to say that I think it's absolute bullshit what ranchers are having to deal with, um, and I think that the fact that they can't. I mean, it seems like rubber bullets would seem like a very reasonable option, non-lethal, and maybe that's even Fish and Wildlife is like saying it has to be this gun that you pay for, these bullets that we've tested that are non-lethal. This is the only thing you can use. You can't be out there making your super your super powerful bullets that still kill them or whatever. I'm sure I understand the concerns. I do. I really understand the concerns, but I think you hit a good point, and you said it beautifully, which is the packs are increasing really, really fast. And that means the techniques that we're using needs to evolve really, really fast. And if we don't figure out how to kind of teach them to cattle are not just an easy meal, they're never going to go into the wild and really be wolves, which are killing. You hit it. That's a whole nother podcast for how many predators have gone crazy in this state with these protective things that, 10 years ago, 20 years ago didn't exist. And now the deer populations and elk populations are getting decimated. But okay, let's just not talk about that and assume there's plenty of deer, plenty of elk, and plenty of rabbits and things for them to eat. Let's just assume that for the moment. If we don't curb the training. I mean, they're literally training the pups how to kill. And so what are the pups going to do? They're not going to go be out there trying to figure out how to chase down a really fast rabbit to eat it. They're going to be like, let's go find some more ranches, right? I mean,
Well,
it's
it's
just
like if you
common
had a
sense.
dog that was killing chickens and you do nothing to stop that dog from killing chickens, the dog is going to continue killing chickens.
Right.
It's
Right.
um, there's not really any negative thing that happens. I mean, they are athletes and they're so smart, and I mean, the thrill killings, I think it's a training exercise of this is how you do it.
Yeah.
And when there's seven pups in a litter that will disperse and they're all learning those principles. This is how you
Right.
kill. And this is the
Right.
easy meal in this
Yes.
situation. There's a meadow and there are deer, elk, cattle. The
Yeah.
cattle are the easiest.
Yes. 100%. They're the slowest. They're fenced. They're fenced
Yeah,
in. Yeah, they're
they can't
sitting
jump
ducks.
fences.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Sitting ducks. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, that was great. So I just kind of wanted to talk about, so you have done a good job, of kind of talking about how difficult things are for ranchers. So you said you read a lot of pro wolf stuff, which I think is really, really smart because you have to understand what is motivating these policies in the state of California. And, You know, it's super easy to say, oh my gosh, I watched Dances with Wolves with Kevin Costner. Wolves are the greatest things ever. They're such sweet animals, which that didn't even look like a wolf to me. I'm just going to say that right now. It didn't even look like it looked like a coyote to me. But nonetheless, if you're in the city, you're never out in the wilderness, you're never out in the woods, you don't know any ranchers, you haven't had any ranchers, the people that are really pushing these policies are probably the same people that voted, that thought that, Proposition 50 was a great idea and gerrymandering the state, right? So the people in the cities think they understand what we deal with, but they don't have a clue in my mind. But just from the pro-wolf standpoint, what is it that makes them want to protect wolves? Just because they're beautiful creatures? They're beautiful, they're cunning. You said they're athletes, they're incredible, but I'm trying to understand the philosophy about protecting them. Or do you think they're
It's,
not seeing the kills? Do you think it's not being, that part of the wolf thing is not being
I think
educated to these people?
they are so far removed. So they are in, urban areas, and they think that Yellowstone is how California should be in the rural areas. And oh, let's go see a wolf, and that would be the best thing ever. But this is coming at the cost of our rural communities. This is people's
Yeah.
livelihoods that are being killed and taken from them. And I don't understand it, and I don't think we're ever going to convince the advocates of it. But I think the people that are in the middle, that have some common sense and can see the other side of it and see the ranchers plead for help that is happening right now. I think those are the people that we are most effective at communicating with and trying to educate. I don't think we're ever going to convince the person. I was on a Zoom, and it was California Department of Fish and Wildlife a while back, and there was a guy in San Diego, and he said, "Well, people shouldn't even be there. The wolves were here first, and it should just be wildlife and wolves and a Disney fairy tale, basically." And it's like you're never going to convince that person. But I think anybody with a little common sense can see that we're struggling up here, and it's not a sustainable system that we have right now. Um, they're small producers, and when they lose three calves, that's a big deal. And when their herd is not breeding back, it's a big deal, and it's threatening to the business. And ranching in California is not easy by any means without these outside forces. So um, we just, I think it's important to keep our ranchers in mind throughout all of this.
Yeah, that's really well said. I have several friends in the ag industry, and ironically, right now in current climate conditions, with input costs and inflation running rampant and that kind of thing, people that are farmers are getting crushed right now,
Yeah,
economically crushed. And people don't really recognize how hard it is to be an alfalfa producer right now.
yeah,
Or, you name the commodity, virtually every commodity in the state of California is literally on the edge of survival, and generational farming operations are filing for bankruptcy. There is just some real challenges going on in the ag industry in general. Now, you flip that around to the farmers and talk about ranchers who are really, leading with cattle, and most cattle operations also have ag operations, but are heavily focused on cattle. cattle prices are great. Cattle, and in general, and it's very cyclical, right? So this
Yeah.
wasn't true however many years ago. The ranchers were getting killed. What people don't understand is that ranchers and farmers understand the cyclical nature of the business they're in.
Yeah.
And recognize, and they plan for the downtimes, and they're really resilient at fighting through these big downturns. But the challenge is when the upturns happen, you need to be able to take full advantage of them, because there's going to be years that you're getting pummeled. And so what's really sad is a lot of people have this, ranchers are doing great. The prices are great. And even when they're reimbursed at great rates, because, cattle prices are really high, not recognizing, well, yeah, that might be true today, but 4 years from now, literally they could be down in the dumps again and losing money on every single animal they're selling. And so I don't know. It's just, I hope you're right, that there's some common sense that's coming into play, and that we can at least be speaking to the people in the middle. You're right. We're never going to convince the extreme left. We're never going to convince the extreme right of opposing opinions. It's just, there's those camps that are so entrenched that, don't confuse me with the facts. I'm going to die on this hill. It's the moderates in the middle that we're really trying to talk to, right? I guess that's the case. So anyway, I think you've done a great job kind of talking about that. So what else are we not covering that you want to bring up at this point, Jess?
So our company is in the process of starting a nonprofit to help ranchers. We are planning on having kind of a concert series, event series to raise funds to educate the public on what ranchers are going through, to help cover costs of the fencing changes, the management practices that have to change for the ranches that are facing these wolves. And so that's kind of a new project that we are starting because we saw the need for it, because you are only reimbursed for the actual loss of the animal. And there's a lot of other costs that come with the wolf presence that are not being covered. And so, yeah, it's an exciting thing that we're starting.
So where can we find more information about that? And if we're interested in figuring out how to support that process, is there more information to come? And if so, where do we find it?
So there's a website. It's rancheswithwolves.com. And there will be social media sites. Haven't started that yet. Wanted to get the website up and kind of inform the public about it first. Kind of go to ranchers and let them know what we're doing. And yeah, it'll be, we're kind of focusing on the North State right now, but our goal is to, make it a big thing.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. That's really exciting. Okay, so rancheswithwolves.com. And is that website active now, or it's about to be?
It is up.
It's up now. Amazing.
It's up. And
That's
so
awesome.
there's a
Okay.
contact form on there. So anybody who is dealing with these losses, we always see the Facebook stuff here and there of, the kills, but there's a contact form on that website, and the ranchers are welcome to, submit any kills they have, and we can kind of track them. Or if someone wants to partner with us, they can contact us there.
Okay. So I just thought of something that I wanted to follow up with mid podcast with you, and you just brought it up again, and that was the trappers and the incredible lengths that they are going to confirm or not confirm kills. So, how many? I've heard, and again, just rumor, but I've heard there's not a lot of federal trappers, and there's kind of the poor trappers are pretty overwhelmed right now.
Yes.
And again, is that your experience?
100%. These guys are working 7 days a week. They'll get a call at 9 p.m. on a Saturday and have to go drive 2 hours to go investigate this kill. They they're also the best people. I mean, they are trustworthy. They they have to see these emotional kills as well, and it affects them. Everyone that I've dealt with, they have said, this is taxing, and they're working 7 days a week. They're overextended.
So in your experience, is there, I mean, I could just imagine, and again, I'm no expert in this, and I'm in the construction world, so I'm not tied to ranching like you are, but it seems like, there's a lot of, I mean, I'm just recently, we had a dinner planned, a large dinner planned, and a family from the Bieber area was coming, and they canceled and said, I think they said the Harvey Pack is in Bieber, and we're going to be up all night. We're not coming
Yeah.
to the dinner. And, that was, shortly after the people in Hat Creek had communicated with me about their kills and, the Siskiyou stuff going on. Right now, are the trappers able to cover everything, or is it sometimes having to take a day or two or longer to get to those areas because they're just so overworked at this point?
I mean, sometimes they're definitely overworked. It can take about 12 hours max to get there. In the meantime, what ranchers can do is cover that carcass with a tarp to prevent any scavengers, and kind of preserve some evidence. I think in certain counties, I know Modoc County and Sierra County, their sheriffs are also getting involved. And so I know maybe they're keeping their own DNA profiles of the wolves just as backup. And the Lassen County Sheriff, he is also great, John McGarva. I had a meeting one time, and he came out, and um, he's our sheriffs are supporting us in that aspect. But there's a need. I don't know. I think California Department of Fish and Wildlife wants the ranchers to go to them more, but there is some mistrust there, and I think that the ranchers trust the trappers, and so they want the trappers there.
That's great. That's great that the ranchers trust the trappers. And yeah, I mean, I'm talking about what a difficult job, right?
Yeah.
So can you just take a minute with just thinking about, hey, someone's calling. This is, people don't understand that these cattle are family to these
Yeah.
ranchers. And everyone's like, oh, well, you guys kill them and turn them to meat. Well, that's true after they've had an incredible life, and
Yeah.
they protect them. And listen, all of us pass. None of us get out of this world without passing. So they take great pride in protecting these animals, developing the bloodlines. It is their lifestyle. It's what their whole family has been raised about. It is the glue that holds that their whole family's universe revolves around, their social structures. Everything revolves around the cattle, right? And that whole cowboy lifestyle starts with cattle. And without it, it doesn't exist. And so then these trappers are having to go out and go, yes, I know your guys' hands are tied. You can't do anything. You're watching your family get decimated before your very eyes, and there isn't anything legally that you can do about it. And when we read that you can go to jail for a year, people aren't stupid. Yes, I love the animals, but I also need to be here to, serve my family and put food on the table. So me being in prison to take out one wolf is just, it's a game I can't play, and I completely understand that. But so then the trappers are going to these highly emotional ranchers, and then seeing these horrific kills. I guess God bless them for doing it and working their tails off. And it makes, at least it makes me feel good that your perception is that the ranchers still trust the trappers,
Yeah.
and that believe that they're working in their best interest for them. That makes me happy. Okay, so I want to talk to you now about who is paying for all this shit. I mean, that's the right. So it's ultimately California taxpayers. We have, I don't know how big of a deficit. Do you have any feel for the kind of money? I mean, okay, so we're talking about what the ranchers pay, or what the ranchers get paid. That is, I can tell you, just as a business owner, that is a fraction, a tiny fraction of what it's really costing to employ, and to deal with all of the policy making and the big picture of dealing with all these wolves. It's a massive amount of money that the state is spending. So do you have a feel for that, or not, Jess?
I don't have numbers. I know that there was a $600,000 bill for reimbursement that was passed a couple years ago and quickly went through. And before that, I think there was a $3 million one, and the first funding covered wolf presence, and so they covered um, kind of I think it was a percentage of what your whole herd is worth. But that money went quickly. Management practices, I know that over in Sierra County, where they had the hazing teams going 24 hours a day, that's not cheap.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a lot of money that we're funneling towards this.
yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. Well, Jess, you've been amazing. You've done a great job. Done a great job of just sticking to facts as you know them, and not being emotional on an emotionally charged issue. So I appreciate that, and really appreciate your time. So any last words that we have before we let you go?
I think that I want the public to know how taxing this is on ranchers emotionally. And I know we touched on that. We talked about it, but there's it's heartbreaking, quite honestly, as well as financially, you know, uh, bankrupting potentially. It's we ranchers are the toughest people and they can shoulder a lot, but this is more than an industry should, from an outside force. And so I think just compassion towards those ranchers. No matter what, something will come across my phone of a new kill, and it hits me just the same as, if it were my own. Um, there was a video the other day, and it was right on Highway 97. Um, and it was some wolves chasing cows, and I think they eventually killed one. It wasn't on the video, but it was a good glimpse for the public into seeing these animals in action. Um, I think just educating the public as far as like what we are dealing with, that is the most we can do. Uh, but yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
So, Jess, let's just talk about that for a minute. So, um, you said, it's heartbreaking, which is probably the best way to say it for the ranching community. And for me, the ranching community has always stood on their 2 feet, and they have, they're not the industry of government handouts. They are in the industry of pull up your pull up your bootstraps and figure it out. There is no one coming to help you.
Yep.
And they have been able to, this industry and this culture in general is everything that's good about America and Americans, in that, you live and die by what you produce, and we are out there feeding the nation. And that is the only way we get paid, is by benefiting other people, right? We're not asking for help. We're not asking for handouts. We live and die by what we produce. And that's incredible. What's different this time for me is that these same people that have been given no help and have always had to deal with it on their own have the additional unconscionable burden of, you can't do anything. You just have to watch it happen and sit back and don't do shit, or we're going to put you in prison. And to me, that is the part that of the whole pro-wolf argument goes right out the window for me, because it is not, we're not teaching them to be out in the wilderness and to be a wild animal and live out in wilderness. We're teaching them how to basically come in and get food designed for the American public as just sitting ducks, and they can't do a thing about it. So until we figure out, at least in my mind, rubber bullets or a hazing that actually creates fear in the DNA of wolves to push them away from ranches and have them go survive in the wilderness, that's going to be, that's the big problem with what's happening currently. So I had another thought I was going on down that rabbit hole, but that was probably,
Well, I actually have
the
a
biggest one.
story. Last winter, the Harvey pack kept coming towards the housing on one ranch, and there was a dog kennel and a weatherproof dog food container, and it was just full. Like, they had just filled it, and the wolves took it and drug it up the hill, probably about 50 yards. And California Department of Fish and Wildlife came and investigated, and they said, well, that dog food is an attractant, and you need to get rid of that. And it's like, there are hundreds of thousands of acres on this ranch and surrounding area, and they are choosing to be right next to housing. One of the officials, the wolves, there was a sandbox, and the kids that lived there play in, and the wolves walked between the house and the sandbox. And one of the officials walked by, and she said, well, the kids probably drop food here, and so that's probably an attractant. And it's like, at what point is this, at what point are these animals going to be wild, and not around housing? And it's just a blame game. They just blame the ranchers, and that's what they did. They said, well, we had these attractants there, and that's why they're by housing. And I don't understand. In a perfect world, this is where it would work, but it's not working.
Right. I know where I was going originally when I lost my train of thought, and it'd certainly be controversial, but it's factual. And that is, you said that video, and I remember I saw that video. I know exactly what video you're talking about. It's kind of just some random people that you could tell have no idea about the wolf issue at all, and they're like, oh, look at that. And they're, oh my gosh, they're chasing something. Oh, they're chasing cattle. Oh, wow. And it's kind of, you can see them, the awareness starting to happen as they're watching, like, oh, I think they're going to go kill that guy. And it's almost a little bit of oh, wow, I thought wolves were like out in the wild and not killing cattle. You could almost hear that in just how that natural thing was happening. So my question to you is, and again, I am more offensive oriented than defensive oriented. And so what is your thought about, if you can use drones to haze and you can't really, and that's not working, and you're a rancher and you can't do anything, what is your thought about filming having really high production filming happening of what is really happening, and having a massive media campaign that is showing the horror that really does happen. I mean, that's the funny part.
Yeah.
It's almost like even on Facebook, it says, you try and click on a picture and it's like, oh,
Covers
you
it.
gotta click like 7 times to make sure you see this actual wolf kill. God forbid we actually show them, literally running animals to death. What's your thoughts on that? Is that just Perry being a little dramatic here, or I'm trying to feel like, how do you fight fire with fire, right? And just go, the the absence of education is ignorance, and
Hmm.
until we get ignorance solved in this issue, we're going to continue to have no support. And
Yeah.
so we've got to try and maybe there's a better way than what I just described, but I tell you, it would be the most impactful
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah. I think that is a kind of one of the things that would be effective. Um, I I know the kill pictures, they only do so much, and they are heartbreaking, and it's hard to look at. But seeing them in action, I know that video on 97, it covered, I mean, I have friends on the East Coast that were sharing it, and uh, it did something, it was just different, And so I think
Yeah.
seeing them in action, um, I think that would be effective. And it's
Okay.
hard
Well,
because, the ranchers, there are people saying, oh, post every kill you have, post it on Facebook and share it. And ranchers aren't that person,
they're not.
they're
They're not
not. And
victims.
and
They're
so
not victims.
a
Agreed.
centralized, that's kind of what we're trying to do with the Ranches with Wolves thing, is just have a centralized storytelling, educational um, thing to help educate the public with.
Yeah. Well, great discussion, Jess. I wish it had more solutions
I
than
know.
just, hey, presenting the problems. That's probably the part that I struggle with the most. But it starts with awareness, and if we can't at least get some awareness out there, that's where we've got to start. And you've done a huge favor to this community for getting on the podcast and talking about it. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and your heart. You're an amazing person. I'm one of your biggest fans, always will be. So thank you for taking the time to spend some time with us here today.
Thank you, Perry. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I don't like being the spokesperson, but I want our ranchers to have a voice.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
any publication, any advertisement of what they're going through is helpful.
amazing. All right, thank you so much.